It was 2 in the morning when Marcus awoke to a loud knocking at his apartment door. The sound was sharp and urgent, echoing through the quiet building. At first he thought it was a neighbor, but the knocking came again, louder and more forceful, followed by a voice shouting, "Police! Open the door!" Marcus's heart began to race. He sat up on his bed and looked around. The room was dimly lit by the small night lamp beside him. Everything was in its place. Nothing in his apartment was unusual. Nothing could explain this sudden intrusion. He felt a cold knot of worry in his stomach. He got out of bed and walked carefully to the door. Each step felt heavier than the last. He paused just before reaching it, taking a deep breath to steady himself. "Who is it?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "This is the police. Open the door now," the voice repeated, more urgent this time. Marcus frowned. He had always been careful. He had never done anything wrong. Why would the police be here? He glanced around his small apartment. The walls were painted light beige. On one side, there were neatly arranged books on shelves. A small coffee table sat in the center with a cup and some papers. Everything looked ordinary, peaceful even. He turned back to the door and hesitated for a moment. Then he slowly unlocked it and opened it a few inches. 2 officers stood outside. Their uniforms were dark, their badges shiny under the dim hallway light. They had serious expressions, and their flashlights cut bright lines across the corridor. One of them spoke. "Sir, we have a warrant. We need to come in." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "A warrant? For what?" he asked. He tried to keep his voice steady, but he felt his hand shake slightly. The officer glanced at his partner. Then he said, "We cannot discuss details right now. Please step aside." Marcus stepped back, holding the door open. He felt a chill run down his spine. This was real. The officers moved in slowly, scanning the apartment with sharp eyes. Marcus watched them carefully. He noticed how they checked every corner, every shelf. Then something happened that made the taller officer freeze. His flashlight moved over the wall and his eyes widened. Marcus followed the officer's gaze and saw where it was fixed. It was his judge's robe. Marcus had earned the robe years ago. He had worked hard to study the law, and now he was a respected judge. The robe hung neatly on a hook on the wall. The fabric was dark and smooth, with shiny gold buttons on the front. The officer stared at it as if he could not believe what he was seeing. Marcus noticed the sudden change in the officer's expression. He took a step forward. "Is there a problem?" he asked. The officer blinked and lowered his flashlight slightly. I didn't expect," he said, trailing off. His partner looked at him confused. Marcus's heart beat faster. He did not know what they thought, but he could see their uncertainty. He straightened his back and spoke calmly. "That is my robe. I am Judge Marcus Hill. I serve in the city court. Everything here is legal, peaceful, and in order." The taller officer swallowed hard. His eyes shifted between Marcus and the robe. Finally, he said, "Sir, we did not know. Please forgive the intrusion. We will need to verify some information, but there seems to be a misunderstanding." Marcus nodded slowly. He had faced many difficult situations in court, but never this close to home. He guided the officers to a chair. "Sit," he said quietly. "I will answer any questions you have, but everything here is lawful." As the officers sat, Marcus felt a mixture of relief and tension. Relief that nothing dangerous had happened. Tension because he knew such incidents could leave a mark even when resolved. He looked around his apartment once more. The books, the coffee table, the small lamp, all of it was a part of his life, ordinary and calm. Yet the sudden knock, the shouting, and the tense presence of the officers had shaken that calm. The taller officer finally spoke again. "Judge Hill, we apologize for the confusion. We will verify our information and make sure everything is in order." Marcus nodded. He knew this was only the beginning of a long explanation, but for now the immediate danger was over. He hoped this would end peacefully, without further alarm or misunderstanding. He glanced at his robe on the wall, feeling a quiet pride. It represented years of dedication, hard work, and integrity. That single piece of clothing had changed the atmosphere in the room instantly. The officers, who had entered with suspicion and tension, now seemed cautious and respectful. Marcus took a deep breath. The night was still dark, the city outside silent, but he felt a sense of strength. He had faced this situation calmly. He had faced it with dignity, and he would continue to do so no matter what came next. Marcus watched the two officers carefully as they moved slowly around his apartment. Their faces were tense, but now, instead of suspicion, he could see hesitation. They had expected chaos, perhaps something illegal, but they were met with neat walls, organized books, and his judge's robe hanging proudly. The taller officer cleared his throat. "Judge Hill, can you tell us why someone reported an issue here?" he asked, trying to regain a professional tone. Marcus nodded calmly. "I do not know who made the report. I live quietly. I work, I study cases, and I return home. There is no reason for trouble." The second officer, younger and less experienced, seemed uneasy. He shifted from foot to foot, glancing at the robe. "Sir, it is unusual. We have to check every report even if it seems unlikely," he said softly. Marcus understood their position. He had spent years listening to people in court, dealing with confusion, misunderstandings, and false accusations. He spoke gently. "I understand. You are doing your job. But everything you see here is normal. You will find nothing illegal in this apartment." The officers moved closer to his desk where Marcus kept his legal files and notes. The younger officer picked up a folder, flipping through pages carefully. Marcus watched him, noticing the surprise in his eyes. Every document was professional, well-organized, and legitimate. I see, the younger officer said, lowering the folder. "Everything is as it should be," Marcus nodded. He could sense the tension slowly fading from the room, replaced with cautious respect. He remembered the moment the officer had seen his robe. That simple piece of clothing had shifted everything. It represented his authority, his work, and his honesty. The taller officer moved to the window, peering out at the quiet street below. "Judge Hill, sometimes reports are made without full information. We have to respond to each one even in the middle of the night," he said. Marcus followed him with his eyes. "I understand," he replied. "I only ask that the next time you verify the facts before coming. A visit at 2 a.m. is alarming." The taller officer nodded slowly. "You are right. We will be more careful. I apologize for the disturbance." Marcus turned back to the younger officer. "Do you have more questions?" he asked. The young man shook his head. "No, sir, I think we understand now. We will report this correctly." Marcus felt a sense of relief, but he did not relax completely. Experiences like this left a mark. He had known people who were judged before the facts were clear. He understood how easily fear could turn into misunderstanding. But for now, the immediate worry was over. He guided the officers toward the door. "You may leave when you are ready," he said politely. "I will cooperate fully with any follow-up investigation." The taller officer paused at the doorway, looking back at Marcus. "Judge Hill, thank you for your patience. This will be corrected. We will inform our department about the mistake." Marcus nodded. "Thank you for understanding. Good night." As the door closed behind the officers, Marcus leaned against it for a moment. His heart was still racing, but he felt a quiet strength returning. The apartment was calm again, the lights soft, the shadows gentle. His robe hung on the wall, a silent reminder of his dedication and honesty. He walked back to his desk and sat down. The papers, the books, and the quiet atmosphere helped him settle his thoughts. He reflected on the night. Strange events could happen even to someone careful, even someone who followed the rules. But how he responded was what mattered most. Marcus knew that fear could not control him. He had trained himself to remain calm under pressure. His work as a judge had prepared him for high-stress moments, but this was different. It was personal. It touched his home, his private space, his sense of safety. He made a mental note to call the department in the morning. He would ensure the report was corrected, and the officers understood fully that there was no threat in his apartment, but he also knew that this experience would stay with him. The night returned to silence. The city outside seemed distant, quiet, and slow. Marcus sat alone for a while, sipping a cup of tea, thinking about the events. He reminded himself that he had acted correctly, calmly, and with dignity. The encounter had been sudden, alarming, and confusing, but it had also reminded him of his strength. He had faced fear in many forms, in court and in life, and he had faced it well. As he finally turned off the small lamp and lay back in bed, he felt a cautious peace. The world outside was unpredictable, but he knew he could handle what came his way. The robe on the wall, shining faintly in the dim light, seemed to watch over him, a symbol of justice, calm, and truth. The morning sun filtered gently through Marcus's apartment window. The events of the previous night still lingered in his mind. He made a cup of tea and sat by the small table thinking about the officers, the unexpected visit, and the robe on the wall. It was strange how one piece of clothing could shift the atmosphere entirely. Marcus knew he needed to call the police department to ensure the mistake was fully corrected. He picked up his phone and dialed the number for the local precinct. The line rang a few times before a calm voice answered. "City Police Department, how may I help you?" Marcus introduced himself and explained the situation clearly. He described the sudden visit, the officer's reaction to his robe, and the misunderstanding that led to the midnight intrusion. The person on the line listened carefully. "Thank you, Judge Hill. We will review the report and make sure everything is corrected. I apologize for the inconvenience. Officers should have verified details before arriving at your apartment," the voice said politely. Marcus felt a wave of relief. "I appreciate that. Please ensure that it is handled promptly. I want to avoid any further misunderstandings." After the call, Marcus set his phone down. He took a deep breath, thinking about the unexpected turn of events. His apartment, usually a place of peace, had felt tense and frightening the night before. The officers had entered with suspicion, and he had faced the unknown calmly. He realized how quickly ordinary life could be disrupted. Later that day, Marcus decided to take a walk to clear his mind. The city streets were busy with people going about their routines. Children laughed as they played in the small park near his building. Street vendors arranged their colorful displays of fruits and flowers. The normalcy of the day made the events of last night feel even more surreal. As he walked, Marcus reflected on his career. Being a judge required patience, understanding, and a calm presence. He often saw conflicts, misunderstandings, and false accusations in his courtroom. Last night he had faced something similar in his own home. It reminded him that respect and patience were powerful tools, not only in court but also in life. Returning home, Marcus noticed a letter slipped under his door. He picked it up carefully. The envelope was plain and his name was written neatly in black ink. He opened it and found a note from the precinct. It apologized for the disturbance, confirmed that the report had been reviewed, and assured him that the officers involved had been reminded to verify facts before taking action. Marcus smiled slightly. The note was formal, but it carried a sense of respect. He hung it on his bulletin board near the robe. It felt like a small victory, a reminder that calm and truth could resolve confusion. Later that evening, Marcus settled into his armchair with a book. The quiet rustle of pages and the soft glow of the lamp brought a sense of peace, yet he remained alert. The sudden events of the night before had reminded him that the world could change in an instant. Suddenly his phone buzzed. A message from a friend appeared. "Are you okay? Heard about last night. Scary." Marcus smiled as he typed back a reply, assuring his friend that he was safe and everything had been resolved. He leaned back, taking another sip of tea. The calm of the evening reminded him that even after fear and confusion, life continued. The city outside his window hummed with activity, people moving, talking, and living their lives. Inside, Marcus felt the steady rhythm of his own life returning. As he looked at the judge's robe hanging on the wall, he felt pride. It was more than clothing. It was a symbol of years of dedication, honesty, and hard work. Last night had been a test of character, patience, and composure. He had passed it calmly, with dignity. Marcus realized that life would always have unexpected moments. Sometimes they would bring fear, misunderstanding, or sudden challenges. But facing them with truth, patience, and calm could turn tension into respect. The experience had strengthened him, reminding him that he could maintain control even in difficult situations. That night, Marcus went to bed feeling a quiet confidence. The events of the early morning were behind him, corrected and resolved. The robe on the wall, the letter from the precinct, and the peaceful evening were small reminders of what mattered most: honesty, calm, and patience. Marcus closed his eyes, ready for the night's sleep, knowing that the world was unpredictable, but he was prepared to meet it with steady hands and a steady heart. The next morning, Marcus awoke to sunlight spilling through his curtains. He stretched and sat up in bed, still thinking about the events of the past 2 days. The police had confirmed that the report had been a misunderstanding, but Marcus could not shake the feeling that something more was at play. He decided to start the day with a quiet breakfast. The apartment was calm, the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional bird outside the window filling the space. Marcus poured himself a cup of coffee and sat at the small kitchen table. His eyes wandered to the judge's robe hanging on the wall. It seemed to glow in the morning light, reminding him of the respect and responsibility he carried in his role. After finishing his coffee, Marcus turned on his computer to check his emails. Most were routine: letters from colleagues, updates from the court, and a few personal messages. One email caught his attention. It was from a community group that worked on legal education and outreach. The subject line read, "Urgent, your guidance needed." Marcus opened it carefully. The message explained that a misunderstanding in the neighborhood had caused panic. A local resident had called the police late at night, worried about unusual activity. The group wanted Marcus to help organize a meeting to explain how to avoid misunderstandings like this and educate residents about legal procedures. Marcus nodded slowly. This was an opportunity to turn a difficult situation into something positive. He drafted a quick reply, agreeing to meet with the group and offering suggestions for discussion topics. Later that morning, Marcus dressed in his usual professional attire and prepared to leave for the community center. On the way, he noticed familiar faces: shopkeepers arranging their stores, children heading to school, and neighbors greeting each other warmly. The world seemed ordinary and steady, yet Marcus carried the memory of the past night like a shadow just behind him. At the community center, Marcus was greeted with polite smiles and nods. People were curious about what had happened. Some wanted to know how such a misunderstanding could occur. Others were interested in learning how to prevent it in the future. Marcus listened carefully to their questions, offering thoughtful, calm explanations. The key, he said, is understanding and communication. Mistakes happen when assumptions are made. Always verify facts before taking action. This applies to law enforcement, neighbors, and all of us in our daily lives. The audience nodded, clearly absorbing his words. Marcus explained how fear could make people act hastily, and how patience and calm could prevent confusion. He used simple examples that everyone could understand. The session lasted for over an hour, but the attention and engagement of the audience made the time pass quickly. After the meeting, a few residents approached him. One woman said, "Thank you, Judge Marcus. I never realized how easily misunderstandings could happen. Your advice is very helpful." Marcus smiled gently. "I am glad to help. We all share the same community. We must work together to ensure safety, respect, and understanding." Walking home, Marcus reflected on the meeting. The events of the last night had turned into a learning experience, not just for him, but for the community as well. The officer's visit, though alarming, had highlighted the importance of clear communication and trust. As he entered his apartment, Marcus felt a sense of calm and purpose. The judge's robe hung on the wall, quiet and dignified, a reminder of the responsibility he carried not only in court, but also in life. He sat at his desk, reviewing his schedule for the week, thinking about upcoming cases and community work. Later, he received a call from one of the officers who had visited him. The officer spoke politely and thanked Marcus for his understanding during the incident. He assured Marcus that the department would hold a training session to avoid similar misunderstandings in the future. Marcus appreciated the gesture and responded with calm encouragement. As the evening approached, Marcus sat by his window, watching the city grow quiet. The lights from the buildings reflected softly on the streets below. He realized that even in moments of fear and confusion, there was an opportunity to create understanding and connection. The day had started with tension, but ended with clarity and purpose. Marcus felt a quiet pride in his ability to remain calm, handle the situation wisely, and help others learn from it. He knew life could bring unexpected challenges, but he also knew that patience, understanding, and honesty could guide him through any moment. That night, Marcus carefully hung his coat by the door, brewed a cup of tea, and settled into his chair with a book. The robe on the wall seemed to watch over him, a silent companion in his quiet home. The city outside rested, peaceful for now, and Marcus felt ready for whatever challenges tomorrow might bring. The next morning, Marcus awoke to a soft light filtering through his curtains. The events of the past few days were still fresh in his mind, but he felt calmer than before. After the meeting at the community center, he had found a renewed sense of purpose. Today, he decided to focus on his work at the court, knowing that a busy day could help keep his mind clear. He dressed carefully, choosing his usual professional attire, and brewed a fresh cup of coffee. Sitting at his desk, he reviewed the cases on his schedule. Each file represented a story, a family, a person depending on fairness and justice. Marcus felt a quiet satisfaction in his work. It reminded him why he had pursued law and why he had dedicated his life to understanding and fairness. As he prepared to leave, Marcus noticed a small envelope on the kitchen counter. It was unmarked and slightly heavier than normal letters. Curious, he opened it. Inside was a note. "Judge Marcus, we need your attention regarding a community issue. Please respond as soon as possible." The note was simple, but it carried a sense of urgency. Marcus frowned slightly. The handwriting was unfamiliar, neat, and deliberate. He felt a small flutter of concern. Was it related to the recent police visit, or something new? Deciding not to waste time, Marcus called the number provided in the note. A calm voice answered, explaining that there had been reports of confusion in the neighborhood about a construction project. Residents were worried about safety and noise, and the group wanted Marcus to attend a meeting to provide clarity. Marcus agreed to come, recognizing this as another opportunity to help. He understood that clear information could prevent misunderstandings and conflict. Later that morning, Marcus walked to the community hall. The streets were lively, with people going about their daily routines. Children played near the park, and neighbors greeted each other with warm smiles. The normal rhythm of life contrasted sharply with the tension of the past few days. At the hall, Marcus was welcomed politely. The residents were attentive and respectful, clearly eager to hear what he had to say. Marcus began calmly, explaining the importance of accurate information and communication. He shared examples of how misunderstandings could escalate unnecessarily, using simple, relatable scenarios. "Sometimes fear makes people act too quickly," Marcus explained. "It is important to check facts and stay calm. When everyone understands the truth, we can solve problems peacefully." The audience listened carefully, asking questions and taking notes. Marcus answered each question with patience and clarity. He emphasized that mistakes could happen, even with the best intentions, but learning from them was key to preventing future problems. After the meeting, a few residents stayed behind to speak personally with Marcus. A middle-aged man approached and said, "Thank you, Judge Marcus. I never realized how quickly misunderstandings could spread. Your advice is very helpful." Marcus nodded. "I am glad to help. We all live in the same community, and understanding each other makes it safer and stronger." Walking home, Marcus felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. The recent challenges, though stressful, had allowed him to make a positive impact. The officer's visit, the note, and the meetings had all shown him how important communication and calm thinking were in every situation. Back in his apartment, Marcus poured another cup of tea and sat by the window. He looked at the judge's robe hanging on the wall. It had been a symbol of his work for many years, but now it also represented his ability to handle difficult moments with dignity. As evening approached, Marcus's phone rang. It was one of the officers from the recent visit. The officer thanked him again for his patience and explained that the department had taken steps to improve communication with the community. Marcus appreciated the call and spoke calmly, encouraging them to continue their efforts. Later that night, Marcus reflected on the events of the past week. He realized that life could present sudden challenges, confusion, and fear. Yet these moments were also opportunities to demonstrate patience, understanding, and leadership. He had faced uncertainty in his own home, then turned that experience into lessons for the community. The city outside was quiet now. Lights shimmered on the streets, and the soft hum of traffic provided a gentle background. Marcus felt a sense of peace. The robe on the wall, the letters, and the meetings were reminders that honesty, patience, and clarity could overcome confusion and fear. Sitting back in his armchair, Marcus took a deep breath. He knew challenges would continue to appear, unexpected and sudden, but he was ready. His mind was calm, his heart steady, and his purpose clear. The lessons of the past few days would guide him, helping him face each day with dignity and care. That night, Marcus went to bed feeling stronger, calmer, and ready for whatever might come next. The morning sun filled Marcus's apartment with a warm glow. He stretched, feeling rested, but alert. The past few days had been intense, filled with unexpected visits, meetings, and lessons about communication. Today, he decided to focus on his work at the court, hoping for a routine day to restore normalcy. As Marcus prepared for the day, he noticed a small stack of letters on his desk. One was from the community group he had met earlier. They had sent thanks for his guidance and suggested organizing more sessions to educate residents about legal procedures. Marcus smiled. The misunderstanding that had started with a sudden police visit had led to something positive for the community. He dressed carefully and left for the court. On the way, he walked through familiar streets, observing neighbors, shopkeepers, and children playing. Everything seemed ordinary, but Marcus knew that ordinary could shift in an instant. His mind remained alert, ready for anything unusual. At the court, Marcus reviewed his cases. He listened to arguments, made decisions, and advised parties with calm authority. His robe, folded neatly on the chair beside him, reminded him of the responsibilities he carried. Each case, each person, was important. He approached them with patience, fairness, and understanding. During a short break, Marcus received a phone call. The voice on the line was hurried but polite. "Judge Marcus, there is something you need to see. It concerns a recent case in your district. Could you come immediately?" Marcus frowned. The request sounded urgent. He asked for details, but the caller was vague, insisting that he come quickly to review certain documents. Marcus agreed, feeling a mix of curiosity and concern. He gathered his notes, his robe, and left the courthouse promptly. At a small office downtown, Marcus was met by a team of assistants and legal staff. They handed him a folder and explained that new evidence had come to light in a neighborhood dispute. The documents were confusing and contained conflicting statements. Marcus took the folder carefully and began reviewing it, noting the discrepancies. As he read, Marcus realized that the situation could cause misunderstanding among residents if not handled properly. People might assume wrongdoing where none existed. He knew that clear explanation and calm action would be necessary to prevent fear or conflict. He spent several hours examining the evidence, speaking with staff, and organizing his thoughts. By late afternoon, he had a clear plan. He would meet with the parties involved, clarify the facts, and ensure everyone understood the truth. Marcus knew that fairness required patience, listening, and clear communication. Walking to the meeting. Location. Marcus felt the familiar tension of responsibility. People's lives, reputations, and peace of mind depended on careful action. He arrived at a community center, where a small group of residents waited. Some looked nervous, others curious. Marcus greeted them warmly, inviting them to sit and speak openly. He began by explaining the situation calmly. "There has been confusion regarding this matter," he said. "I have reviewed the documents and spoken with everyone involved. The goal is to ensure clarity and fairness." Residents listened attentively as Marcus outlined the facts. He explained how misunderstandings could escalate if assumptions were made and emphasized the importance of verifying information. He answered questions patiently, ensuring that everyone understood the truth. By the end of the meeting, the residents appeared relieved. They thanked Marcus for taking the time to explain clearly and calmly. One man said, "Judge Marcus, your guidance has prevented a lot of worry. Thank you for helping us understand." Marcus smiled. "It is important to stay calm and seek the truth. When we do, we can prevent fear and confusion." Walking home that evening, Marcus reflected on the day. The morning had started with tension and uncertainty, but through careful review and clear communication, he had turned it into understanding and relief. The city outside was calm, the streets lined with glowing lights and people returning home peacefully. Entering his apartment, Marcus hung his robe on the wall, feeling its quiet strength. It represented more than his work. It symbolized patience, fairness, and the ability to guide others through uncertainty. He brewed a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the city settle into night. Marcus knew that life would continue to bring challenges, sudden events, and misunderstandings. But he also knew that calm thinking, patience, and clarity could transform confusion into understanding. That night, as Marcus prepared for bed, he felt a deep sense of readiness. Whatever came next, he was prepared to meet it with dignity, calm, and clear judgment. The past few days had taught him that responsibility extended beyond the courtroom. It too. The next day began with an unusual quiet in Marcus's apartment. Normally, the city outside was busy with traffic and chatter, but today it seemed calmer, almost still. Marcus poured himself a cup of coffee and sat by the window, thinking about the recent days. The police visit, the community meetings, and the unexpected call about the neighborhood dispute had all been challenges, but he had faced each one with patience and clarity. As he drank his coffee, a knock came at the door. Marcus straightened immediately. Visitors at unexpected times were unusual for him. He walked to the door and opened it carefully. It was his neighbor, a young woman named Nina. Her eyes were wide with concern. "Marcus, I thought you should know," she said, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "There's something happening near the community park. People are confused and some are worried. They are looking for someone to explain what's going on." Marcus nodded, understanding immediately. "Thank you for letting me know. I will go there now," he said. He grabbed his coat and the small bag he usually carried for court notes, including a notebook and pen to keep track of information. The walk to the park was short, but as Marcus approached, he could hear voices. Groups of people were gathered, talking quickly, pointing at construction equipment and asking questions. Marcus could see the tension in their faces. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Good morning, everyone," he called, his voice calm and steady. The chatter quieted as people turned to him. Marcus recognized many of the faces from his previous community meetings. They looked relieved to see him. "There has been some confusion about the construction project here," Marcus began. "I have reviewed all the facts and I am here to explain what is happening. My goal is to ensure that everyone understands the situation clearly." He went on to describe the project step by step. He explained the timeline, the safety measures, and the reasons behind the construction. He used simple language, avoiding technical terms so that everyone could understand. He encouraged questions and answered each one patiently. As he spoke, Marcus noticed that the crowd's tension slowly eased. People nodded, listened carefully, and began to discuss the project more calmly among themselves. Marcus smiled slightly. His presence and clear explanations were helping to turn worry into understanding. A small group of residents approached him after the main discussion. One older man said, "Judge Marcus, we were worried that something unsafe was happening. Thank you for explaining everything clearly." "You helped us see the truth," Marcus nodded. "It is important to remain calm and seek accurate information before jumping to conclusions. When we do, we can avoid fear and confusion." After the meeting, Marcus walked home slowly. He noticed the quiet of the neighborhood again. The city seemed peaceful, and the people he passed smiled politely. He realized that understanding and patience could change how people reacted to uncertain situations. Back in his apartment, Marcus placed his coat carefully on the chair and brewed a fresh cup of tea. He glanced at the judge's robe hanging on the wall. It had guided him through difficult times in the past week. It reminded him of his responsibility, not only in court but also in the community. Marcus sat at his desk and reviewed some upcoming cases. He reflected on the past week's events. Every challenge had required patience, clarity, and calm. The police visit, the letters, and the community meetings had been unexpected, but he had learned from each one. He understood that life could bring sudden confusion, but steady thinking could guide people toward understanding. As evening approached, Marcus received a call from the precinct. The officer who had visited his apartment last week spoke politely. "Judge Marcus, we wanted to thank you for your guidance with the community. Your advice helped prevent misunderstandings and fear. We appreciate your patience and cooperation." Marcus smiled. "Thank you. I believe calm, clear communication is the best way to solve problems. I'm glad I could help." Later that night, Marcus sat by his window with a notebook in hand. He recorded notes about the community meetings, the questions people had asked, and the lessons he had learned. He wanted to use this information to guide future actions, ensuring that misunderstandings would be handled quickly and calmly. The city outside was quiet. Streetlights reflected softly on the pavement, and the distant hum of cars was peaceful. Marcus felt a quiet satisfaction. The events of the past week had tested his patience and clarity, but they had also strengthened his ability to guide and teach others. Sipping his tea, Marcus looked at the judge's robe one more time. It had been more than a symbol of authority. It had been a reminder of honesty, calm, and responsibility. He knew challenges would continue to appear, but he felt ready. With the city resting quietly below, Marcus closed his notebook, finished his tea, and prepared for bed. He was calm, confident, and prepared to face whatever tomorrow might bring. The morning air was crisp as Marcus stepped out of his apartment. The events of the past week had taught him patience, calmness, and the power of clear communication. Today he felt a quiet sense of purpose. He carried a small notebook and his pen, ready to take notes during a final community session that he had agreed to organize. As he walked through the streets, Marcus noticed the familiar rhythm of the city. Shopkeepers were opening their stores, children were laughing on their way to school, and neighbors greeted each other with smiles. Life was moving steadily, and Marcus felt glad that his actions over the past week had helped to restore calm and understanding among the people around him. At the community center, Marcus was welcomed warmly. Residents had gathered, curious and attentive, ready to listen. Some were the same faces from previous meetings, while others were new. Marcus could sense a mix of curiosity and cautious anticipation in the room. "Good morning," Marcus began, his voice calm and steady. "I am here today to talk about understanding, communication, and how we can prevent misunderstandings in our neighborhood. We have learned a lot over the past week, and I hope we can use that knowledge to make our community stronger and safer." He spoke about the recent events, carefully explaining the importance of verifying information before reacting. He told the story of the construction project, the reports, and the confusion that had arisen. Marcus emphasized that mistakes could happen to anyone, but handling them with patience, clarity, and calm thinking could prevent fear and conflict. The audience listened attentively. Marcus encouraged questions and responded to each one thoughtfully. People asked about specific situations, how to handle sudden confusion, and what steps they could take to communicate better. Marcus answered with simple, clear explanations, showing practical ways to resolve issues without panic or misunderstanding. After the main session, a few residents approached Marcus personally. One young man said, "Judge Marcus, I understand now how quickly fear can spread when information is unclear. Thank you for teaching us how to stay calm and informed." Marcus smiled. "It is important for everyone to take time, check facts, and listen carefully. That way we can all help each other and our community." As the session ended, Marcus walked home slowly. The neighborhood seemed calmer than before. People waved politely, and the park where children played was peaceful. Marcus reflected on the lessons of the week. The unexpected police visit, the letters, and the community sessions had all been challenging, but they had shown him how patience, clarity, and calm could make a real difference. Back in his apartment, Marcus hung his robe on the wall and brewed a cup of tea. He took a seat by the window and looked out at the city. The lights of buildings reflected softly on the quiet streets. He felt a sense of satisfaction and calm. Marcus thought about how a sudden knock at his door had started this chain of events. The officers had entered his apartment in the middle of the night, unsure of what to expect. The sight of his judge's robe had reminded them and him of the power of honesty, dignity, and calm action. What had started as fear and confusion had turned into understanding and education. He sipped his tea slowly, feeling the warmth and quiet around him. Life could be unpredictable, he realized, but the way he responded made all the difference. His calm, clear thinking had not only protected his own peace, but had also helped others understand and act wisely. That night, Marcus prepared for bed with a feeling of quiet pride. The events of the past week had reminded him of the importance of patience, honesty, and responsibility. He looked at the judge's robe one last time. It had been a symbol of his work, his integrity, and the calm strength he carried into every situation. As he lay down, Marcus reflected on the lessons he had learned. Misunderstandings could happen anywhere at any time. Fear could make people act hastily, But patience, clear thinking, and calm communication could turn even the most confusing and difficult situations into understanding and peace. The city outside grew quieter as the night deepened. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling confident that he had faced every challenge with dignity. He knew that life would continue to bring surprises, but he also knew he was prepared to meet them with steady hands and a steady heart. With that thought, Marcus drifted into sleep, peaceful and ready for whatever tomorrow might bring. The robe on the wall, a quiet symbol of integrity and calm, watched over him, a reminder that patience and truth could guide anyone through even the most challenging